The best response you can have to a payoff in a thriller is someone goes, "Oh, right, I forgot. Of course, I should have."
On Story offers a look inside the creative process from today's leading writers, creators, and filmmakers. All of our content is recorded live at Austin Film Festival and our year-round events. To view previous episodes, visit onstory.tv. On Story is brought to you in part by the Alice Clayburgh Reynolds Foundation, a Texas family providing innovative funding since 1979. From Austin Film Festival, this is On Story, a look inside the creative process from today's leading writers, creators, and filmmakers. This week's On Story, Courtney Kemp, the creator behind Star's hit show, Power.
I went in with a very specific plan. I knew I was going to pitch characters. The most important thing in a television series is your characters. It is not your premise. A really great idea is no match for great characters.
In this episode, Courtney Kemp discusses the genesis of power, diversity in Hollywood, and staying true to your voice.
I actually started in graduate school. I thought I was going to be an English professor. I found out that being in graduate school, pursuing a doctorate was super lonely. And I liked being around people. I like a collective experience. So I left there and I went to the Condé Nast building, where I had one of those kind of like ugly Betty experiences. I was certainly the only person of color for like miles, basically. It was like me and Andre Leon Talley somewhere in the building floating around. I worked at Mademoiselle. And then after that, I went to GQ, and I was at GQ for 3 years. And at the time I was at GQ, I was assigned a story that I wrote, and it was basically how to date a Black woman. It was about interracial dating. And that piece, no one read because it was in the September 2001 issue. But it's okay. It was great because it got me a book agent, and that book agent ended up, she was at ICM, and that's how I got my TV agent. And that TV agent is still my agent to this day. I wrote a Bernie Mac spec, and then they read it and they did not give me a job. And then several months later, I went in, they asked me to come in for to pitch possible ideas to get a freelance. And at the end of that session, they said, we're gonna offer you a job. So I got very lucky because I had actually written a spec, and they hired me off that spec. And that meeting, that doesn't happen that often. I was very, very lucky. In terms of working on broadcast TV, it was a dream come true. I'd always wanted to write and get paid for it. I didn't know how to do that, which is how the sort of English professor journalism thing happened. Like, I don't know exactly how to get paid to put words on paper. And when I was growing up, I didn't even think of television writing as a job. Everybody knows it as a job now. It's much more open. But at the time, it was like, what? And who are all these people with producer titles? Who knew, right? So I just was very lucky.
We finally got you a nightclub.
People come here and become whoever they want to be for the night. It's a fantasy.
It's the best nightclub opening the whole year. We can go national, international even. It's the truth.
You still haven't told me how you made this happen.
Our goal is the prosecution of one of the most notorious drug traffickers in our hemisphere.
We open up a nightclub to hide the money.
What if it could be more than that, though, man?
I just want it to stay this way.
I won't be a drug dealer forever, Tasha.
Everybody starts out small. Question is, what do you want to make of yourself?
Power is the first show I pitched, first pilot I sold, first pilot I wrote for money, first pilot I ever shot, well, I didn't even shoot a pilot, we went straight to series. There is no romantic story here about Power was birthed out of like a long-standing friendship between me and 50 Cent. He was at CAA, I was at CAA, they put us in a room together. It was not, it's not this thing. I mean, that's why I say so much of it is being in, like trying to get in and work your way up. I was on The Good Wife at the time, and my father had just died, and I was working on, I was trying to write about him a little bit. I was a new mom. And I had already been working on something that was in a blaxploitation genre, which is actually funny because I just sold that idea. So that's going to be Get Christy Love. But at the time, I was working on that, and then they were like, well, 50 Cent and this producer, Mark Kenton, want to make a music-driven series. And I thought, okay, and I put some elements together, and I got in a room with them. And then 50 and I, who I don't call 50 unless I'm in public, his name's Curtis. He just, 50 is a persona, that's not him. But Curtis and I we knew how to tell story the same way. Like rappers and country music singers really just write stories and then perform them. So he was really already well-versed in beginning, middle, and end. And he trusted me to do, and this is the thing about all good bosses, they trust their people who already do what they do to do it. So if I have my production designer, I trust him when he says, I can't do that or I can do that. You know what, you trust people, he trusted me.
What do you think it was about your approach of the pitch itself that Starz looked at and said, we want to do this?
Oh, I'm not so sure how it had anything to do with me. 50 Cent was attached. And your auspices matter, but I would say I went in with a very specific plan. I knew I was going to pitch characters. The most important thing in a television series is your characters. It is not your premise. A really great idea is no match for great characters. It doesn't matter what your characters do if they're great. People watched how many seasons of Friends? What did those people do, really? They drank coffee, you know what I mean? Like, the Seinfeld people did nothing, like, on purpose. I mean, those are sitcoms, but even so, like, even in a drama, your characters are what people come back for. I always say that when you write a feature, all you're asking people to do is sit with those characters for 2.5 hours. When you are actually writing a series, you want those people to become a part of your family. And you want your audience to go, yeah, I can't wait to see what they're gonna do this week. Or in the next episode. So you really have to spend your time on the characters and on the conflicts within the characters and then the conflicts between the characters. So that's very careful. Within the character, him or her or non-gender specific self, and then between your characters. Otherwise, you don't have a foundation. When you go in to pitch to a network, the first thing they ask you about are the characters. They don't ask you about the plot. The plot is secondary. It's not as important.
He wasn't there. He was killing Felipe Lobos. Don't pretend you don't know who that is.
Ghost enough, sweetie. All night. Matter of fact, he's upstairs right now. You want to call him and ask him for yourself?
How could you take him back?
I am his wife and the mother of his children. I never lost him. So whatever you think he did the other night, he was with me. You were a midlife crisis, Angela. Crisis over.
That's why you start with the characters, because they have inherent conflicts in themselves. Like, in each character, there's a conflict, so then you can always just service that conflict, right? So I make up more story about Ghost. Ghost is he's always struggling with the same thing. The same problem is always the same problem, whether he is shaving or driving or in a conversation with Stern or in a conversation with Tasha or in a conversation with Angela. It's always the same problem, which is, how do I see myself? Am I being a good guy or a bad guy in this moment? How can I justify my behavior? How can I justify my worst behavior? That's really it. That's him all the time. So as long as the conversation, as long as you're true to the thing in the character, you can tell infinite stories. Angela's always gonna wanna win, no matter what, she wants to win. It doesn't matter, whatever we put in front of her, it's always gonna be about, how do I win? Tasha is always gonna be the same, which is, how do I survive? Which is not the same thing as, how do I win? So it's always the same thing. Tommy's always, who will love me? It's always the same. So you can always make up infinite stories and put an infinite kind of situations around a person so that that question is forced and forced and forced and forced. If I define the character as the question that the character is constantly asking, then that question will absolutely come in conflict with the other one. So for example, Ghost is always in service of himself. Am I a good guy? Am I a bad guy? If Tommy is always in service of who loves me, where will I find love? Then that's gonna come into conflict because Ghost is always about self and Tommy needs to be about somebody, right? So then that will always give you juicy, delicious stuff. In terms of hiding it from each other, the big problem with that, I'll tell you, is that you need them to articulate that sometimes. And if they're lying to everyone, we get into this problem with Ghost and Tariq all the time, which is if they're lying to everybody, who are they telling the truth to so the audience can hear it? So you need to find one character like that. That's often the most complicated.
Ghost came to me this morning wondering why you stopped his plan to get out. He cannot know that I told you, Tommy.
He's not gonna know that you said nothing. It's handled.
You know, he's not wrong about getting away from Milan.
Listen, Tosh, I got a plan to get us all out from under Milan.
You sound just like Ghost now. He's always got a plan. It's always about trusting him.
Yeah, well, trust me. We all play our parts right. Everyone will get what they want, as long as Milan and Ghost stay in the dark.
I am trusting you, Tommy. Ghost can be a lying sometime, but he is still the father of my kids. And I need to protect him, even from himself.
I'm protecting him too.
From your perspective, in terms of how you've invested in this particular project, what do you think the story is? I mean, what is it that you're trying to say through Power?
What I started out to say was really about Obama. What I started out to say was, here you get this really intelligent black man from the hood, and he, like most black people my age, thought that he could never be president. That the only way that he was gonna get out of the hood was because he couldn't throw a ball, catch a ball, run, or rap, that he thought, okay, well, I'll sell drugs. So the whole original idea of the show does have a lot to do with the lie, that he was actually wrong and that he could have done it legitimately and chose not to. So that was the beginning. But in terms of the characters having complexity and the world, what I always tell people is I'm covering the message of the show by showing you, nudity and violence and all that things, because I'm actually writing stuff that's very banal. The rule at Power is we tell a banal story and then we add power. So, for example, we got a man who's cheating on his wife. That's like a story that you could tell anywhere. It just so happens that he's a drug dealer and the woman he's cheating with is a federal prosecutor and he doesn't know about it. And that's the first season. But it's really, he's just cheating on his wife. It's super normal. And the reactions that everyone are having are the reactions people have. It's just heightened. And that's really the call of the writer's room is like, how boring and basic can you make it? This past season, we did a storyline about, we have twins on the show. And one twin is a good twin and the other twin is a bad twin. And the bad twin does so many bad things that he ends up really harming the good twin.
You were at my school the other day looking for Tariq.
Yeah, I was just headed to find your principal.
I know who you are, Ray Ray. You need to leave my brother alone. My father's gonna kill you.
This is a story you could tell anywhere. It just so happens that we're talking about drug dealing and guns and violence and really bad undercover cops. So bad stuff happens, but that's Power. Yeah. What is my weakness as a writer? I have many. That's why I have such a big writer's room, because I'm not that good. No, I'm kidding. My weaknesses, I'm not good at action, like putting action on the page. I'm good at cutting action, at editing it, but I'm not good at designing it. I'm not a good fight choreographer. That's something that I'm really learning how to do. So how do I overcome that? That's what a writing staff is for. You ask for help. When you don't know how to do something, you ask for help. You try not to get ego involved and say, oh, I'm the showrunner, so I should know how to do this. I don't know how to do everything. Can
you talk a bit about your writer's room? I mean, so for example, the makeup of the writer's room, what you look for in writers, how you manage the writer's room?
Sure, that's a great question. I look for people who are better than me. I want every writer on my staff to be a better writer than I am. I want them to know different things than I do. I don't have another Ivy League educated Black woman from the Northeast in my writer's room. I don't need her. I have been asked many times to hire that woman, and I've always said, why do I need her? I need people who aren't like me. And that means any number of different people. My writer's room is diverse in the real sense of the word, like the actual sense of the word. I hate that that word now means black. Is the writer, people say now in Hollywood, they say, well, I've got a diverse director or I've got a diverse writer. You can't be diverse as one person. How is that possible? But that's what that word means. And it actually doesn't even mean like, it doesn't really expand to mean brown or Asian or native. It usually just means black, and that always makes me laugh. I've got a director named Lakeisha Washington. She's diverse. You don't say. My writer's room is, I'd say, half minority, half white, but it's basically half women, half men. My number 2 on the show is gay. He's a white gay man over 55 who's from New York. His brothers were Westies. That helps me a great deal. You know, I need people from New York in my room, but not everybody is from New York. I need women and people of color, and I need some people who are from the hood, because I'm not from the hood, I'm from Connecticut. See the shoes? So it's like you have to be, I just really need all these different voices. One of my co-EPs is a white woman from Whittier, California. Her husband is a cop and is also an Army sharpshooter. He's a sniper. She gives me a lot of stuff about being a cop that I wouldn't know. I mean, you have to look at what your show is and bring the room together. I will tell you, it's very important not to hire a whole bunch of people who are just like you. Then you obviate the need for yourself.
So one of the things I think that's become really interesting over the last few years or so is just the explosion of social media, and there's a lot to talk about in terms of that, but we only have so much time. But my sense is, I know do you still live tweet when the show comes on?
Nope.
Okay. And there's this whole thing called Black Twitter, and just a kind of distinct phenomenon in and of itself. And as someone who studies Black Twitter, realizing that it's far more complex than most people tend to understand. But give us a sense of how that landscape. I know it doesn't write the show, but my sense is, right, that you and the network are responsive to the back channels and the chatter that happens via social media.
Well, it's changed since the beginning, because I insisted in the first 2 years that I would live tweet every episode, and that we would also have a Power of Writers Room Twitter that would be live tweeting the episodes as well. And we started with that, and we really wanted a social media presence that was going to be huge, and then it took off and it became something that was so out of control that I actually had to back off and go away, because the people, the viewers, did not understand that the show was fictional, and had gotten to a point where they were threatening one of my actors because they did not realize she was coming to work and pretending to be someone. I actually we had people threaten violence, which made no sense. I actually really don't understand how these people did not know the show was fictional. I mean, really. Reality shows look different. But it's been actually really deeply sad to see that as the show got more popular, that some fans really took it in a very ugly direction. That was really shocking to me. I was really saddened by that. And then misogyny, racism within the Black community, and then some things that were regional that I didn't understand. For example, there's no real division between Black folk and Puerto Ricans or Dominicans in New York City, because everybody's everything. It's all mixed up. But for people to think that the show was trying to say that somehow Latinos or Latinas were better than Black women, I mean, there's some of the things that I've been called, some of the things that people have said to me that have been really harmful and hurtful. I just was like, forget it. I'm done. And the thing that's sad is that I no longer live tweet the show. So all those little tidbits about how we write the show, all this, they're not there, because these people actually chased me off of Twitter. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. So I'm not answering questions. But okay, that's for my own peace of mind.
It was also my sense that Power was a different kind of show for Starz in terms of the cast, the multicultural sort of dimension of the cast. Obviously, you as a showrunner, I'm curious, right, and I'm sure many of you are as well. What have you learned, and what do you think the network's learned about, bringing together, these diverse kinds of casts telling stories through different kinds of lens, and how that might influence the kinds of stories that we might see in the future?
Well, Starz really didn't have a kind of show because the current regime came in and all that was on the air was Spartacus. They had done Crash, which did have a diverse cast, but that was prior to this regime. Then this regime came on and they did Boss and Magic City. And then they were like, well, what are we going to do next? So they took a shot on Power because they wanted to see if they could get what they call an underserved audience to watch the network. And that really worked. All that meant, and this is a very important thing, the only color that matters in Hollywood is green. Nothing else matters. If people are telling you that it matters that something is diverse or something is LGBT or something, it doesn't. Does it make money? Oh, it does? Fantastic. And so that's like really key, is that my network, all they did was learn, oh, if we put stuff on that people of color will watch, they'll subscribe to the channel and we will make money. And so any time that there is like there's sort of a, well, diversity is really happening in Hollywood and things. No. Ride Along made millions of dollars. Fast and Furious 6 and 7 made millions and millions of dollars. Power makes millions of dollars for my network. That's it. That's all that matters. That's it. That's the whole conversation. There's nothing else to say about how people's minds are opening. Nope. No one cares. It is absolutely, and there's a network, I won't mention it, but there's a network right now that's looking for programming that appeals to the, they keep calling it the heartland. And that is programming that is less diverse, let's just say. That's because that's gonna make money. That's all that matters. Nobody cares. It's not like anybody's mind has changed. I think that's a really important point. I think people are sometimes looking for like, stories for people of color or women or people who are gay or people who are native or people who are trans. They're finally actually accepting these stories. No, those stories are making money. That's it. Look at your ideas. Will your ideas make money? If your idea is not going to make money, stop pursuing it. Find the idea that will make money, go make the money, and then go back to the original idea, which will now make money because your name is on it. That's it. It's not more complicated. We are not, even though we are writers, we are also performing a service. We need an audience. Otherwise, we can stay home. I really strongly believe that the things that have changed have been, we need to find some other way to make money. But I don't think that it's about any kind of like new respect for or new, I don't know, I don't think it's about that shift. I think it's about, if it were, then things would have changed prior to now, but they didn't. I only planned for the show to be around for 5 years. There's a lot of push from various people to do various things longer than that or different iterations, and I don't want to ruin my show by making it too long. It was not designed to be a show that went forever. It's not CSI. It's not a case of the week show. It's not a medical show. It doesn't have an engine like that. These characters are going to die eventually because that's the show. Did someone moan about that? Have you been watching the show? Okay. No, well, not everyone. It's not. It's not Hamlet. But I'm saying, but okay. But drug dealers end up one of two ways. And that is in the first 2 episodes I state that. If I were lying, then you would no longer believe in the show. When I started out at Bernie Mac, I didn't get along with everybody. Immediately, I realized that I was talking too much, and that I was had too much personality. And I talked to my shrink at the time, who is still my shrink. And he said, well, you can do one of 2 things. You can learn to smooth that out, or you can be yourself and face the consequences of being yourself. And I chose to be myself and face the consequences, because that way I never had to pretend. And that way every job that I got and every place that I was there because the people wanted this. I was able to run the writer's room at The Good Wife for a short period of time, right the year that I gave birth, the year that I was pregnant and I had the baby. I was running that writer's room because I had a strong personality. I was able to run my first show because I had a strong personality. Now, I'm also really easy to get along with. I mean, this is a lot of mouth, but it's, I really like people and I like their stories. And the journalism thing made me someone who asks a lot of questions about people. So I'm actually, you know, I think it stood me in good stead. I don't fight with people though. There's no fighting. Like if you're in a writer's room, you pitch something, it doesn't go, you pitch it a second time in a different way, it doesn't go, then you're done. You don't pitch it a third time, you let it go. You go with what the room is going through, you go with the flow. Greg Berlanti said, and I think this is really important, he said to me, not to me, but to our whole writer's room, if you pitch something twice and it doesn't go, it's okay to be quiet about your contribution at that point. The key is to be kind to others and to be extremely vocal in your support of others. Use your voice for good, not for evil, but don't quiet your voice. I mean, that's the thing you got. That's all you got is your voice. So use it.
You've been watching A Conversation with Courtney Kemp on OnStory. OnStory is part of a growing number of programs in Austin Film Festival's OnStory project, including the OnStory PBS series, now streaming online, the OnStory radio program and podcast in collaboration with Public Radio International, and the OnStory book series available on Amazon. To find out more about OnStory and Austin Film Festival, visit onstory.tv or austinfilmfestival.com.